All right, Larry Krueger here at Levi's Stadium on a Wednesday as we recap everything that happened down here on a Wednesday in Santa Clara as the Niners get ready to take on the Seattle Seahawks Sunday in a must-have NFC West tilt between two teams that look like they're going in different directions. We, of course, are brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And they do run out. So get there early. Get some brisket chili. Tell them the Krug sent you. Say hi to Damon and Mary. This video also brought to you by Sharp Corners, Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove along the Monterey Peninsula. Thanks to my good friend Anthony Catania, who's one of our sponsors, 831-521-5264. All right, let's talk about a big Wednesday here in Santa Clara. Kind of an overcast day. Niners getting ready to take on Seattle, looking to win 3 in a row for the first time all year. George Kittle did not practice today. He was out with a hamstring. Kyle termed it as irritation, so hamstring irritation. Didn't say it was a pull or a tear. It's obviously not a tear, but didn't sound all that serious, but he didn't practice today. Neither did Mitch Wishnowsky, and that one might be a little bit more significant. Wishnowski's got a back injury, and the 49ers have signed the veteran punter Pat O'Donnell, who's 32 years of age. Supposedly he's a good field goal holder as well as a punter, because Shanahan admitted today that he's concerned about Wishnowski's back and whether or not he's going to be good to go. So that's something to keep your eye on. Nick Bosa, we talked to him today. He didn't practice today either. He's got a hip injury. A lot of people were critical, myself included, of Nick for his inability to bother Baker Mayfield on that fourth down play. Nick kind of, I don't want to say made an excuse today, because he didn't make an excuse, but he just did say that he was out there kind of playing hurt a little bit, playing, probably a little gassed, a little fatigued, a little banged up, and he was still trying to give it a go. I still don't understand that play at all. It's like, why is it a foxtrot rock? I mean, is it a dance step? Or are you going to, yank the guy down and like most defensive ends do to quarterbacks? But you live and learn on that one, and the 49ers obviously lost out on that particular play. I think Bosa was a little embarrassed by the replay of it as well. Trent Williams didn't practice today. He's got an ankle injury. Also, it's kind of a Veterans Day for him. Mooney Ward remains away from the team. He is still dealing with the tragic death of his daughter, and the team wants to give him as wide a berth as possible. Shanahan said that he talked to Mooney and that he could be back soon, but they don't want to put any timetable or expectation on his return, and that makes sense. And then Kevin Givens has got a groin strain. He also did not practice today. As far as who was limited today, Chris Conley, John Feliciano, and Christian McCaffrey were limited. McCaffrey with the Achilles. Matt Barrows asked, as a follow-up, was there some kind of an Achilles setback with Christian? And Kyle assured everybody that no, there was no setback. He's just limited today. And they're going to baby him. They're going to baby him during the week, as they should. And I'd love to see them baby him a little bit more on Sundays by, using Garendo and Mason a little bit more. We'll see if that winds up being the case. The other guy who people asked about today was Renardo Green, who's just been fantastic. The second-round pick out of Florida State has just been an absolute find. He was a full go today. He has a little bit of a toe injury, but he was a full go today at practice. As I said, Kyle said that he's talked to Mooney Ward in the last 24 hours and that Mooney, probably is going to return soon, but getting closer to a return, but he didn't want to put any kind of time frame on it. Of course, the big news yesterday was that Demo Lenoir signed a 5-year, $92 million deal, and we talked to him today, and he said that he burst into tears when he found out the deal was done. These are big moments. I think everybody kind of looks at football and says, well, they're all pro athletes. They all get paid a ton. A lot of players have very little security, and they're going year to year. Only a few select players. I mean, the quarterbacks are doing really, really well financially, but the other players, it's who gets taken care of. And there's only a handful of guys that typically get big money long-term extensions like the one that Lenoir just got. So, I mean, look at Ambry Thomas. Ambry Thomas was drafted in the 3rd round out of Michigan with a lot more fanfare than Demo was drafted. Demo was a 5th-round pick out of Oregon in the same draft. And look at their 2 careers. Ambry hasn't been locked up, and Demo just gets a 5-year, $92 million deal. And Ambry is a free agent at the end of the year, and he's staring at an uncertain future. And these guys were very comparable coming in. So it just kind of shows how difficult it is to get to the point where Demo is at right now. And I asked him, I said, hey, nobody gets here alone. Shout out anybody you want to shout out that helped you. And he said his family. He said his family really challenged him to get better and to go for it. And he gave all the credit to them. So good for him. Shanahan said he was pumped up that the Lenoir deal is done. The Niners are tired of these high-profile holdouts that linger into camp and into the regular season. Shanahan said he's exactly what we want as a 49er, citing that he loves Demo's physical style of play. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, Demo is super physical, very physical player. And Kyle said he's one of the Niners' most confident players as well. He said he's got a very similar mindset to Jimmy Ward, which in other words means he wants to kill you. I mean, there's no other way to say that. Jimmy Ward just wanted to kill people. I mean, obviously not off the field, but on the field. On the field, Jimmy Ward was about death and destruction, and so's Lenoir. And that's what I love about him. It's a violent game. You need guys who enjoy the violence, and this guy enjoys the violence, and he's damn good. Really good cover guy. He can play in the slot. He can play outside. He's versatile. Really a terrific player. And Shanahan said, he's always been a fighter. He said he's ready to go at any time. All I got to say is, man, if you're a 49er fan, how exciting is it that the future on the corner is Lenoir and Green? I mean, Renardo Green has been awesome, and now Lenoir is signed long-term. So those two guys as your starting corners going forward next year, they're probably going to have to say goodbye to Mooney, but they're in good hands with Green and Lenoir on the corner. The Niners also announced today that they've released T.Y. McGill to create a roster spot on the practice squad for Pat O'Donnell. So McGill was cut loose off the practice squad. They needed O'Donnell, as I said, with the Wishnowsky back injury. And then what's going on at the defensive line is that the Niners acquired Khalil Davis. He practiced today. He looked pretty good, pretty explosive. But Evan Anderson is coming on. This guy is just a monster. Anderson had one of the biggest plays of the entire game. The way he stuffed Rachaad White, inside the 5 after he had the legal hands to the face penalty. I mean, that was huge. I love this kid Anderson. He's playing at a really, really high level. DK Metcalf spoke today in Seattle. He's got the MCL sprain, but he's gearing to go. So I think the Niners ought to figure he's going to go, which puts more pressure on Mooney possibly to return because Mooney's the Metcalf stopper. And Mooney does a great job against Metcalf. He's got tons of confidence against Metcalf. He loves to line up against Metcalf. So Metcalf's going to go, and hopefully Mooney's going to go as well. Interestingly enough, George Kittle is playing amazing football. He was only targeted 4 times last week. He caught 3 balls, including that amazing corner of the end zone toe tapper, which was a flat dime from Purdy at the end of a 8-second play that, he held the ball, moved around, found George in the Kittle and dropped a dime on him. But as far as Kittle goes, he might be the Niners' answer to solving the man-to-man riddle. The Niners have struggled a little bit, or at least Purdy has struggled a little bit against man-to-man. 19 of Kittle's 22 receptions this year have come against man coverage. So he, in a lot of ways, might be their answer. I'd love to see the Niners get another blocking tight end, or at least feel confident using Saubert more as the blocker and getting Kittle out in more of the patterns. I'd love to see it. And one thing to remember this week when you're watching Niners-Seahawks, the Seahawks will be the 4th team that the 49ers have played off the bye. KC was off a bye. Dallas was off a bye. Seattle's off a bye. And they got one more after that. The Niners have 4 games against teams coming off a bye. And you sit there and go, well, is that a big deal? Well, no other team in the NFL has more than 2 games like that. There's no other team in the NFL that has more than 2 games where they're playing a team that's coming off a bye. The Niners have 4. So, I mean, if there's one thing that has to be adjusted as this league goes forward, if they're so worried about equal this and equal that, and everybody's got to be the same, and there is no advantage, and nobody can be in the practice facility 1 hour longer than they're supposed to, 1 minute longer than they're supposed to without fines being levied. I love how you're going to levy fines for all kinds of things that are an uneven playing field, and then you're going to allow the schedule makers to give one team 4 games in a 17-game schedule off teams with a bye. I mean, the teams with the bye have an extra week. I mean, that to me, the NFL needs to look into the credibility that's tied to the schedule and start. I know they want to prioritize great TV matchups, and that's awesome. It's a business. They're trying to make money. There's no fault in that. But if you're going to have an equal playing field, then have an equal playing field. If you're really concerned about equal playing field on all these other accounts, then why are you not worried about an equal playing field with something as important as rest? If the Niners go to the Super Bowl this year, the Niners have the worst rest disadvantage in pro football. The Ravens have the best rest advantage in pro football. If these two teams meet in the Big Easy in New Orleans in the Superdome on Super Bowl Sunday, a rematch of the Harbaugh Bowl, it will be the Ravens who have 37 more rest days combined than the 49ers. We're not talking over the course of 5 years. We're not talking over the course of a year. We're talking 37 extra rest days over a season that lasts 4 months. A 4-month season, and one team's got 37 more rest days than another over 4 months. That's obscene. That is obscene and needs to be addressed. Think about it. I mean, 37 days of extra rest in a sport like this, period, would be, major, even if it was a full calendar year. But 37 extra rest days in a sport that's regular season lasts 4 months, inexcusable. And it's a blatant example of an unfair practice that the league. So the league, when the league's talking about fairness, this and that, the league prioritizes their cash and these great TV matchups over a more equitable rest situation for all their teams. And I think it's getting worse. It's getting worse over the last couple of years because the league is sold out for all the best matchups and all the greatest revenue. But, the price that gets paid is some teams are going to be at a competitive disadvantage. And that team this year in the NFL, more than any other team, is the San Francisco 49ers. Just another hurdle that the Niners are going to have to overcome if they're going to go back to the Super Bowl. All right, that does it for the video. That's what happened here in Santa Clara on a Wednesday. Check me out tonight. The Niners Nightly at 6 o'clock. We got a couple guests from Seattle. We'll do a deep dive on the Seahawks and what they look like in this matchup. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles for sponsoring this video. Thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.